Today is the day that we officially start working on rebuilding my Lotus Evora. Now we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but I found a 2GR FE engine, which is a Toyota-based platform, to replace what's currently in here. And really, when it comes to rebuilding cars, you kind of just have to jump on deals when you find them, not when you're looking for them, or you'll end up paying a ton more money. So let's start by looking at what all is wrong with the car and what we need to get done this weekend. For those of you that are new here, this is my 2010 Lotus Evora, and I bought it with a blown engine. Now that sounds really weird because this was a completely stock engine when it was blown up. It was previously owned by Schmodified, and one of his friends had the misfortune of money shifting it pretty hardcore. Anyway, the engine is absolutely wrecked, but what's more dramatic about it is the fact that when the engine blew, it actually blew the transmission through the firewall back here. I have parts of this somewhere in the garage I'll have to find, but it caused some really catastrophic and honestly impressive damage for what it was. So when he still owned the car, he went in, he replaced the transmission, and he thought that everything would be good because there wasn't any visible damage to the engine. After he got everything switched out, though, he found that that wasn't true. And also, why are there just a bunch of solenoids down here? What is going on? I have not really touched this car since I bought it with the blown engine. If we come around the back here, you'll see something interesting. So this is a 2010 Evora S, but he went ahead and put a later generation supercharger on it. Now it hasn't been really run with the supercharger on it because it has the blown motor. So we're going to strip the supercharger off and any components that we need on the stock 2GR motor, hopefully drop it in. But in order to do that, we essentially have to take this entire rear clam off of the car, which will take a few hours. So hopefully this weekend, at the bare minimum, we will get the rear end off the car and start to remove the motor. But I'm not gonna lie to myself and act like there's going to be a stable timeline on this project, because that's not really how project cars work. If you guys have been watching for a while, you know that I've been working on my project Lotus Elise that I swore I was going to be done with in a few weeks repainting, found a ton of issues with, and ended up spending about a year rebuilding that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes well with this build and we end up getting it back on the road within the next month, but we'll see. So the engine is blown. Could mean a lot of things. What that means for this specific engine is I am not getting compression in cylinder 5, but the engine will crank over and the car will move under its own power. It just sounds horrible. I'm getting blow by in cylinder 5. We're gonna pull the engine out and take a look inside, see if the engine is salvageable to maybe do like a longer term race built motor for it. But for now, we're just gonna put the stock motor back in so I can go back to actually driving and enjoying the car, and then swap over to using this as my daily driver instead of the Lotus Elise. It might sound like it's not a big deal to just drop a new engine in, but that's never the case when it comes to project cars. And this car has been sitting for, well, it's been sitting for a year, about since I owned it, and then before I bought it, I think it was sitting for about another year before that while they tried to figure out all the little odds and ends projects and problems that the car had. So it's been sitting for about 2 years, which, if you know anything about project cars, the longer a car sits, the more problems you're naturally going to have. So we'll just have to see what happens when we tear into it. But first, we need to clear out some space in the garage. In the meantime, at least someone has been finishing up their multi-year Lotus rebuild project.
Don't rub it in.
I'm not rubbing it in, honestly. I was just saying how long it took me to do mine, but comparatively, like, let's talk about everything that has happened to this car since Saxon bought it. So he got backed into. He imported this custom V6 Exige front end from the UK, which took several months. He bought a wrecked Exige and then re-custom fiberglassed this entire back half. I'll drop a link to his channel down below so you guys can check it out, because he does 100% of this work himself. He has a, hopefully at the end of it will be 800 horsepower turbo K series back here under this custom hatch, and all of these little odds and ends bits. Oh, you did your center console. That looks really nice.
Yeah, to wrap up the shit we put in that.
Yeah, this is honestly an insane build. Probably one of my favorite ones that you've done. Look at that. Excited to get this one back on the road. And we can drive it with mine. Speaking of Schmodified, here's what he's got going on while he works on that. He bought this Lotus Elise just to drive it around. He's going to be doing a twin turbo kit and an SVJ style body kit to this Lamborghini Gallardo, and then he will be doing a K-Series swap and a custom full build on this Gallardo. He might be a sociopath, but I mean, at least we all get along here. You're doing a great job. Great job, SpongeBob.
That's what my mom told me.
Most importantly, since he's almost done with that, it got moved into that garage, which means I get to take over this garage for the Evora project. But he has been working on the Elise in here, so it's gonna need a little bit of a cleanup, nothing too bad. And then over here we have my new 2GR engine. This supposedly had 120 something thousand miles on it according to the guy, but it's pretty clean. So he might not have been pretty spot on. This might have been a remanufactured engine. I don't know, but we're gonna check it out, make sure it's good. It's getting compression. Everything visibly looks good inside and around the motor. So hopefully this is the answer. I bought this for $1,000 cash, which was practically a steal. So we're gonna go ahead and get this cleaned up today, and hopefully at the bare minimum, pull the Evora in and start taking the back end off of it. I am straight up not having a good time, but here's where we've gotten so far today. In the first hour, I don't think it's bad. I think it's very reasonable to get the car into the garage tonight. So, I actually found a lot of cool stuff in the garage. So obviously I moved my engine over after we cleaned up. This is some suspension parts for one of the Lamborghinis, maybe both of the Lamborghinis. Over there in the corner is a supercharger for my currently stock Lotus Elise. I forgot that I had these carbon rear louvers that need to go on the car. What else did I find? Oh, yeah. So I have 4-point ASM anti-submarining Schroth racing harnesses to go in this car, but I'd been missing the lower components, so there they are right there. I love that these are red. I think this car is going to look really cool with some red accents. So now that we have those, we're going to get those cleaned up and in the car, and a new shifter assembly for this car. If you watched my last video, you know that the shifter linkage in here is an absolute nightmare. And further proof that just because you can work on a car doesn't mean that you should work on a car. Anyway, so we're gonna go ahead, finish getting the garage cleaned up. I need to move this twin turbo kit for the Gallardo into the garage, and then we're gonna go hook up a battery to the Evora and pull it in. Okay, so we got the garage mostly cleaned up. We did not get the Evora moved in here tonight, but we are headed out to the Orlando car meet, so let's see what happens.
Which one? The one that Gab was loose on? Alright, we'll fix it.
Surprisingly, the car actually made it all the way out here safely. So we already moved from one meet location to, of course, the iconic Orsa sign, 7-Eleven. But it looks like the meet is mostly broken up, which makes sense because it's like 2 a.m. now. All right, it's about 5 a.m. We have all made it home safely from Orlando. Now we are headed to bed, and tomorrow we are going to officially start the Lotus Evora rebuild. So thank you guys so much for following, for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button to join along with the Evora build and whatever shenanigans we get up to now that the Lotuses are actually all running for the first time ever. Thanks, guys.